I don't think I am at all immune, nor do I want to be, from these things that I at times and most of the world kind of shit on and make fun of. But many, many years ago, my friend, a wise friend of mine named Eric Owen said to me, "That which you judge, you will someday walk through." And I have unfortunately found that to be so fucking true.
We have Devendra Banhart on the podcast this week. We talk about music, art, skateboarding, the people, books, and influences that have shaped him spiritually, and other fun stuff. I'm your host, Ivan Bercholz.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm really good. How are you?
I've got a microphone under my shirt, and there's a camera pointed at me. But I'm talking with someone that I admire, I respect, I love. And we made a pledge last night, which is, I hope you never get to know me. I love you so much. I hope you never get to know me.
And that was a mutual. How about this? I won't actually get to know you. I'll get to know more about you.
Right. This isn't like people don't hang out like this. This is weird. This doesn't count at all. We're not going to get to know each other.
Yeah. I just want to start this particular interview with the fact that you are most well known for your world of the arts, for your singing and your visual arts and things like that. But I met you in quite a different capacity.
Yes.
I'll just tell the little backstory that I had never heard of your music. And you were in town in Boulder, Colorado, playing a show, and our publicist, Claire Kelly, mentioned that you were there and that you were a big fan of our books. And she saw you post our books on Instagram, and she thought that it might be fun for you and fun for us to get to know you by inviting you into the office. And I was so delighted to meet this beautiful, interesting man who was like a kid in the candy shop coming into the Shambhala Publications office, because you're quite a subculture nerd. In the best way possible, in a way that I find so alluring. And you really are you're a bibliophile and a fan of the written word, and particularly of the spiritual traditions. Would you say?
Yeah.
That's been my observation.
I would say I kiss books.
Yeah.
I kiss books. And certain books I place over my head before I start reading them. And you put out almost all of those books.
Yeah, I mean,
there's one right here on the desk, which was not. This is not, a plant. This is not a plant. This was actually here, and I'm reading this just every day. After I come down from the little shrine room, I'm just going slowly through this beautiful, beautiful compendium of some of the great Kagyu teachers. I remember that well, thanks to Claire. Oh my gosh, this is wild. Can I please just anything you need? I'm in your debt. I'm a super fan. And on tour, you don't want to do anything.
Yeah.
You don't even want to play. You don't even want to play. People go to a show and it's like, oh, nice, let's check out a show. That person up there is so tired and hungry and homesick. I don't know how anyone does it. And you definitely don't have time to do things. Right. And you still, to this day, I've been doing it for some time. To this day, friends are like, "You're in town. Let's go to here. Let's go there." You have no idea. I have no time. If I see you on tour for 10 seconds, it's like an exertion that requires that I'm like so amazed that I managed. But Shambhala, the opportunity to visit the offices, I called a sound check as fast as I can. I gotta get out of here. And I remember going and seeing the beautiful building, wooden building that gave me a Northern California nostalgia feeling, and the giant Guru Rinpoche.
That's right, we had that.
I was like, so rare, it's so beautiful to see. And it turns out you're just the most beautiful, special people. I couldn't believe it.
Well, since that happened, I feel like we've developed this. My family and you have developed this like really
since
beautiful.
It happened, it turns out,
Dharma romance.
It is interesting. I want to make a joke about, don't meet your heroes, but it doesn't apply here. I really, It's a funny thing.
Yeah.
I love your dad.
Yeah.
I mean, he's really like a really big part of my life and really important to me. And we have this very beautiful, every time we see each other, it's like, I don't know if you are my son, my mother, my lover, but something. And then we just touch foreheads. It's really wild. I don't take that for granted. It's one of the few very, very precious things that aren't things, you know?
Yeah.
It's the beyond things that I have. And thanks for letting me read Cynicism and Magic so I could then do the fantasy of instead of getting a couple bucks, going through the catalog and just picking things that I'd never, it was so fun. And I have actually read those books. And then I'm shocked that I want to keep reading more, but it's, a cookbook doesn't have any food in it, but you have to cook every day. You have to eat every day. And I need to be reminded to do that. It requires this daily practice, so you don't just eat one time and that's it.
Yeah.
And it turns out that I'm really, really just totally Swiss cheese. And I've read all these books, many of them multiple times. Yeah. And if you ask me what it's about, I'll have nothing to say about it.
I'm the same way.
I'm shocked that it's something I'm so beyond interested in and in love with. It's the only support really in my life.
Are the books.
Is Dharma, let's say.
Yeah.
It's the only real effective support. So because my job is I play music and I paint, and particularly music, you're just there alone on stage, and also particularly now that I'm not playing with a band, it's just me and a guitar. And if I rely on my ambition or ego or substances or anything but Dharma, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
I cannot hold a show with any other support.
Can you tell me a little bit about the trajectory of when you made that discovery? And because I assume when you were a younger performer, it was less a part of your life, right?
Yeah.
When did that transition happen where that started to seep into your life and affect how you perform and how you look at performing and how you look at your craft?
Well, that's interesting because I wanted to ask you a similar question. Okay. Because most Westerners, I don't know about most, but many aren't born into this practice.
Yeah.
They're not really born into Buddhism. And then many people actually in the eastern part of the planet are born into a more cultural Buddhism. And maybe that typically is more of a Theravada thing.
Right.
But then here, Western people have a midlife crisis and then get turned on to typically Mahayana.
Yeah.
You were born into it, right? Totally born into that environment. It was not ever exotic to you.
Yes.
So that's really unique. And what is that like? Because most of us Western practitioners did not have that experience.
Well, I think it's like anyone who's raised in a tradition, in a spiritual tradition, there's the way that you're raised in it and your relationship to it as a child, where it's something that happens around you and not necessarily something that you relate to. And that was a really beautiful upbringing, and there was a lot of richness to it, but I didn't necessarily appreciate the depth of it. It was just what was happening around me. Like the same if you were raised Catholic or Muslim or whatever, it's like what your parents do, what those around you do, and you appreciate the songs maybe and a part of the warmth of the community, but not necessarily the spiritual tradition. So it was a lot of absorbing through osmosis as a young person. And then I had my rebellion, like I think most good skateboarders do. Like you have to push it away to find what sings true to you. And for me, it was like music and skateboarding and weed and my friends. And it took me meeting somebody who held the teaching so completely to want to look into it more. So for me, it wasn't the teachings rang true to me. For me, it was, I met my teacher, Tinley Norba Rinpoche. My dad brought me to meet him. And just through his presence, I couldn't ignore that there was something special going on and wanted to know more. And so that was really the beginning of my exploration of the teachings on my own right. And it was entirely through my mind being stopped by seeing somebody who was so undeniably different in the best possible way from anyone I'd met up until that point. As an adult, I met Dzongsar Khyentse Rinpoche and Trungpa Rinpoche when I was a little kid, and it didn't mean much at that point because I was, goo goo gaga, and it was more like smiles than presence. It was great to have the subtext of being raised in that way, and it made it so it wasn't such heavy lifting when I did turn toward it in my own right. But a lot of the kids I was raised with didn't have that experience, and therefore didn't necessarily, it's not a part of their lives. It's more like a cultural Buddhist, like somebody raised in Tibet or Southeast Asia, where it's what happens in the family, and they have some appreciation of the tradition, but not necessarily. I feel like most of the people that I was raised with, if they pursued the Dharma, it's because they met somebody or met the circumstances that really rung out for them and made them hungry to find out what it was, or they read something. I think we all have different karma and how we.
Yeah, well, you've got some really interesting, different, and very auspicious karma.
Totally.
To have met those people.
Yeah.
And to have had that be your teacher, and who I assume would have an effect on anyone. Meeting someone like Tinley Norba Rinpoche is going to have an effect on anybody.
Sure.
Just like all those stories of the Karmapa dying in Chicago.
Right.
And how the doctors in the hospitals affected by that presence.
Yeah.
And that maybe was what makes it so, obviously to me, makes it universal. It's like how it makes me a Buddhist.
Right.
Is I took refuge vows, I took the Bodhisattva vow. I really had to work for it.
Yeah.
It was not like just, okay, you're a Buddhist. I had to ask my teacher, and he's like, well, in Japan, he's like, well, we'll do it in Nepal. I had to go to a cave outside of hours and hours outside of Kathmandu. Amazing. I was very fortunate, but you have to really work to do it. But I'm still, it's not my culture. I'm still an outsider, all of those things. But it's just that I've got a heart. Yeah. So there you go. That makes me, that's the only thing where I'm like, this is what it is speaking to, of course. And where I go, I've got the right to be a Buddhist. Yeah. So I've got a heart.
Yeah.
And anyways, but to your question, I love that you mentioned skateboarding. For me, I got into music because of skateboarding. And I wonder if there's some people that got into the Dharma through skateboarding.
I'm sure.
And it maybe there's something to that attraction to skateboarding that leads to something like, this is a stretch, but like Vajrayana, in that it's esoteric. Yeah. Skateboarding was esoteric. It was not the popular thing. Yeah. People did not think I was cool when I was in high school as the skater kid. And I was wearing my skate shoes. They were green, and I got made fun of for them. It was still culturally not acceptable, and people didn't find you more attractive or cooler because you were a skateboarder. So it was an outsider thing. And it certainly was not an organized sport. It's something you can do on your own and with your little band of losers.
Misfit losers, yeah.
Weirdo loser misfit friends. And as an adult feel that way when we have our pujas here. I'm like, oh wow, we're this little crew. This is a very special thing. It's very open. Anyone's invited. But it's esoteric. It's kind of secretive and hidden. Yeah. And for a good reason. Right. It's for good reason. But the type of person attracted to skateboarding might be attracted to Dharma as well. But anyways, I got into music because of skateboarding. And those early chocolate videos we were talking about.
Yeah, we had dinner last night and we were talking about our skateboarder pasts.
But Ivan skateboards, we both keep skateboards in the trunks of our cars, but he actually will cruise. He'll park far from where he's going and cruise there. It's been like 10 years I've had it in the trunk. Where oh yeah, it's the skate, but it's there waiting, and you're inspiring me to cruise around.
Maybe my Peter Pan syndrome is just a little more advanced than yours.
I doubt that's true. I mean, I know that's not true, but I'm going to give you a run for your money and start parking a little far away. I want to skate like down in Venice too. Do the classic thing, like that little piece of pavement through the beside the beach.
Well, the board that I have right now in my car, I bought when I was visiting here, and I was walking from Venice to Santa Monica, and it felt like a really long walk. So I stopped at a skateboard store and I bought a board and I rode along there, and it's been with me since.
Is it a cruiser?
It's like a short board cruiser.
I've got a chocolate board now. That's like a trick board, but I'm not doing tricks. I don't know why I have that. So maybe I should get like a zip zingers or something. Yeah. And it seems like you're cruising, you have a little mala, do your malas,
totally.
Right?
You just, as long as you have sort of situational and awareness, so you're not too concentrated in that situation.
This is our inside joke. It's a dance. I've lately been wanting to, because I haven't done 100,000 prostrations for my gondro. I don't even know what number I'm at. I used to keep a thing, but I took a pause from it. Yeah. And I've been excited to kind of what if I got a board big enough that I could do prostrations on? That's what I'm trying to get at. And just do it like that. And then I made it to Topanga with that.
I think it's good that you lost count. When I was a teenager and started Mundro, and I was really trying to finish, Tendino Rinpoche walked into the house where I was practicing and saw me and my friend Richard doing prostrations. And he was really encouraging us, but he said, now keep doing them, but stop counting, because I can tell that you're doing it to try to finish, not for the heart of the practice. And so I didn't count for maybe 30 years until I felt like I could do it without caring. And I think you're probably old enough where you're more in the practice and more paying attention to the heart of it. But as like a teenager, I was like gung-ho, and I just wanted to, like, it was this physical thing that I was trying to get through.
I have some of that too, for sure. But I can see how, if I was doing it as a teenager, which I would have never, I'd be doing heroin. But I would be doing it like a video game. Almost.
Yeah, exactly.
I've got to just get to the next level. I've got to finish this level. Yeah. Or there's that kind of to be good.
Right.
To be a good boy.
To be a good boy.
Yeah. But that's so skillful, obviously, to tell you to stop counting. It's so beautiful. So we're going to develop the first prostration skateboard.
Yeah.
Prostration board.
Prostration board. It's got to be a real long board.
Prostration board. Amstration.
We'll be the first pros.
Yeah.
So we sidetracked a little bit because we were talking about how skateboarding got you into music.
Yeah.
And then I was curious, you were saying how you don't know how you would perform music if you didn't have your practice now. Yeah. So I'm just curious how that changed.
Because I tried all the other supports.
Right.
I tried.
Tell me a little bit about that.
It's something I think about, but not something I express often. So I think at the beginning, you're so excited to have a song to sing, and it's beyond terrifying.
Yeah.
And you're doing something that the world isn't really encouraging, which is a good thing. And at least that was my experience. My first show was not in front of a bunch of people and with a label going like, that's the new thing, and a bunch of people loving it.
Yeah.
It was at an art opening, and a friend of mine, while I'm playing, somebody started yelling like, shut the fuck up, you fucking suck. And I started crying, but I was like, this is so, I knew this was going to happen when you play. I knew this was going to happen when you play, but you got to keep playing. And I finished playing, and then I noticed my friend had been laughing, and he had a video camera. So, and I was like, I was so confused and hurt and happy and proud of myself that I got through the show. And then he told me that he'd paid this guy to heckle me. Obviously I didn't know. He paid this guy. Just at the art opening, just kind of even maybe walking by. He said, "Here, it's $20. Will you just please heckle my friend? It's an art project." I had no idea. And I was so pissed and grateful at the same time, Like, wow, that's basically the thing I'm the most scared of. You gave it to me on the first show. And then the next show was at a wedding for my roommates in San Francisco. And then after that at bookstores and at restaurants, anywhere. I was playing anywhere. And it's to people who could care less, yada, yada. But you're riding on this high of how terrifying it is, how challenging it is, and how much it means to you to do this somehow. Somehow you know that you want to do this. And you're looking at the people that have come before you that you're inspired by. And for me, that was like Caetano Veloso and Vashti Bunyan, and just a lot of. I thought I was kind of like a blues person. I was obsessed with like Bo Carter and Blind Willie Johnson and Son House. I was like, I'm doing it, just me and the guitar. And that's the support. And then later, the support is people's some kind of adulation.
Yeah.
People really, for one moment, you're kind of in this wave of people really paying attention, and famous people are coming to your show, and all of that feels amazing, and you feel like, of course they should be here, but that's a high, and that's the support, just something like that. And then substances, you're just drunk or high at the show, and that makes it a lot easier to play. Or I've got to, whatever it is, all of those things are not good supports. They're not healthy supports. They will completely kill your soul and take much more than they give.
Yeah. And
so it turns out, I also had to go far, far from the environment that I was, because my parents are yogis, I did grow up seeing them meditating around me, and there were Buddhist sculptures around the house. That's not their lineage or their practice. It's more Hindu.
Right.
Hence my name, that their teacher gave me my name and all this stuff. But it was familiar and interesting. But I went really far away from it and kind of got into it on a pretty superficial level, even though not so superficial. The aesthetics were really beautiful and were attractive to me. But it wasn't like I was really practicing anything. Yeah. And it started to dawn on me that perhaps these supports are not very effective engines of propulsion or kind of fuel for trying to honor this thing that you care about so much, which is making art. And at the same time, really interested in theosophy. Like, what is this? What is God? Is stuff. God is really interesting to me. As just a little kid, I'm interested in God. I'm interested in why I have the body, how this thing moves. Something feels like I landed here in this body. This is, as a little kid, I had this feeling like, okay, I've got this, like, it's like this machine, and I'm telling the arm to do this. And I'm tripping out on that big time. And then a part of me starts to think that it's pretty easy to say God isn't real. It's pretty easy. It's pretty safe in a way. Like, oh, okay, God isn't real, cool. And it's pretty easy to say God is somewhere else. Like, there's this church, that's where God is. Yeah. There's a temple, that's where God is. There's a sacred place, that's where God is. God is over there. It's pretty easy. It's gonna make me cry to think about it. But like, to say God is here and now and everywhere and within me is fucking, that's so monumental that's something interesting. It's worth looking into that. Yeah. And then, it's so beautiful actually to think about, like, and now I'm gonna just jump to completely falling in love with Vajrayana and how, it's language, and language is not the thing. And so we would say, spaciousness, as God is spaciousness. Yeah. And that's like the most beautiful, poetic, profound thing to hear. And it was such a relief to hear that. Because I'm so interested in this. What is this emptiness? What does that mean? What does spaciousness mean? What does vastness mean? Yeah. What does it mean to rest in a mind vast as sky? And all of that is like finally, eating food. Yeah. Yeah. So I tried all these other supports, and they were fleeting and profoundly impermanent. And if I had attached to them too much, it would be, I think, how you make really, really, really bad art. I just make bad art. But this is how you make really, really, really bad art. is when you are making it for the people that you don't want to stop listening to you, or you're making it to be liked and to be accepted, or you're making it to be relevant and new and fresh. Those are all actually not bad reasons to make it. But if that's the reason, if you're clinging on to this old support that is already, left yesterday, this is probably when you make pretty better. So the Dharma now today is like the only support that works in order to play a show where I'm just holding the whole event, just me and the guitar. So I don't drink before I play. I just do, I practice. I've got even some magical incantations that my teacher has shared with me that I really said, Rinpoche, tell me some cool, trippy, supportive words to say before I play. And he sent me something that I recite. And then I have this kind of these deities that are very supportive.
Yeah.
I think of Avalokiteshvara, and I say that mantra, and I'll say the Shakyamuni Buddha mantra, Rinpoche mantra. That feels like a much more effective support.
Yeah. And it would seem that even if the form of the art isn't bad, that your relationship to it, I assume, would become poisoned at some point, and it would be the cause of misery instead of the cause of joy if you don't find that different relationship with it at some point. Like, do you find...
Well, then, I don't know what to tell you there, because for me, it's just misery. It's just misery.
You've said performing is misery, but do you find it, like, do you find misery? Like, you have this beautiful room that you paint in over
It's a miserable place. It's a miserable place. I'm trying to avoid being in there constantly. But of course, it doesn't feel good either. Okay. What just feels good is to completely let 8 hours go by and you have no idea what happened.
Yeah.
That's the best.
When does that happen?
And having a new song to sing or a new painting to show, I guess. Right. But the chasm between me and doing that, it's just torture, and it's like it grows and grows. And it turns out that I have no idea what inspiration is, and it only works if I actually do the thing. And it's all sharp edges. But then something does happen once you walk through it. I don't know.
When you get out of the way. My dad always says, when you get out of the way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's like really a real thing. It really is a real thing. It's a real thing.
Yeah.
But getting out of the way is a challenge. And it does require a sacrifice.
Yes.
A huge sacrifice, of course. And so it's uncomfortable. And once you stop doing that, I guess that's when things get really, it's just pretty miserable for everybody. It's probably pretty healthy to do it at some point too. And I'm terrified to think if I'm doing it right now, and I don't know, but it's important to return to these things. Just like you grew up in this environment where you're meeting Dzongsar Khyentse Rinpoche, and Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, and these people are practicing around. It's incredible, but you do have to go skateboarding and smoke some weed and do some weird other things. Just see it. You can't see it. You do have to go away. I think, right?
Yeah. I mean, of course, it depends on our karma, and people have different karmic propensities. But I do feel like there's something to seeing the opposite and then being drawn back to the truth of the situation. And that happens in the life story of the Buddha, and it happens in a lot of stories that you have to see the opposite. You can't just have this completely pristine existence all the way through, because you need to see the grittiness and the truth of suffering. You need to ride the waves of these different things. And that's why actually sometimes I wonder if people who weren't raised in Buddhism, who had to earn it, like you said, actually appreciate it more and practice more sincerely, because you don't take it for granted. And I think that's a learnable thing, but it's something that I've noticed that I feel that I do sometimes, and I see in some of the people who are raised in it, where it's almost like we feel like it's our birthright in some way, and that's the wrong attitude,
Right, I know.
And so those who actually had to work for it, like Tenzin Norpa Rinpoche would teach sometimes, and he would see us getting antsy. He would A, often teach in the middle of the night, and B, we would have to wait around for many hours before Rinpoche would teach because we didn't know when it was going to be. And he would see us getting like, fidgeting and getting antsy and like starting to fall asleep. And he would chide us about, that the teachings shouldn't be too easy. Like the story of how Marpa had to go to India because genuine Buddhism wasn't left in Tibet very much because of King Longdharma's crushing of the institutions. And so it was hard to find Buddhism in certain areas of Tibet. And he had to make these treacherous trips to India and, through all these hardships just to get little nuggets of the teachings. And it's more impactful, when you have to work for it. There's something to making the effort that the reward is more appreciated.
Wow, so true. Fuck, I love that so much. I'm just thinking of how, like when I first asked my teacher, my root teacher is Neten Chokling Rinpoche. And I said, Rinpoche, can I please take refuge? Can I become like a Vajrayana Buddhist, Nyingmapa Buddhist, please? And I was in Japan. Mm-hmm. And he said, well, why don't you think about it a little bit more and come to Kathmandu and we'll do it there. And it wasn't in Kathmandu, it was actually in Asura cave. Mm-hmm. Very special, auspicious place. It's all for me.
Yeah.
But of course, at that moment, I'm like, what? No, just give it to me. Yeah. This is nuts, I'm here. And then to learn to take things a little deeper and to kind of expand my practice. Some years later, I was asking for teachings and he's like, okay, we'll come to the monastery in Bir, in North India. And that's a trek.
Yeah.
And even getting to Bir, there's no airport nearby, and it's the whole thing is multiple flights. And then you go there, and then it's like, wait for the moment that he's ready to teach something. And he's teaching things that I could Google them. Mm-hmm. Like, what is Vaz?
Yeah.
What is Shamatha?
Right.
It's just not the same.
Yeah.
Of course not the same.
Yeah.
Of course it's not the same. And these are somewhat efforts. Of course, it's nothing compared to what it is in other traditions, other parts of the world. I'm so fortunate that it was just some flights, basically.
Yeah.
Think of that Milarepa story, building I'm going to jump off the cliff and jump, all these stuff. That's like real guru devotion and hardships in order to receive a teaching.
But they were ready for that at that time.
I'm just going to say that it's still pretty easy compared, right?
Yeah.
And how fortunate I can talk to my teacher. I can WhatsApp my teacher. Hey, what, like, da, da, da. And I do that. And I've lately been asking about pilgrimage, going to Bhutan. I haven't been to Tiger's Nest.
Yeah.
And I really am excited. I really want to go. But I also secretly cannot wait. I just love that he does not immediately reply and is not asking me to do stuff.
Yeah.
I am still totally trying to not do homework and really trying to play hooky and really hoping that I just want him to be like, you're good. That's it. I do not want more stuff on the plate.
Yeah.
So that's a funny thing. And I think the beauty of it is its irrationality in the eyes of the rest of the world. And that's always an indicator that it's worthwhile and important.
Yeah.
Like the before Dharma, it was art, and I was just in love with art. I knew that this, like, the poetry thing and painting thing and music thing, the whole world is telling me not to do this. So this is good. This is interesting. Let's do that.
Yeah.
You are just throwing your life away by doing that. What a waste of time, and is pointless. Wow, that is no other way of making something more attractive to me. And it's the same with even with religious things. Is if anybody's coming to me saying this I'm certain, the word certain, nothing will make a bigger turn off. Nothing is a bigger turn off than this is the only way.
Yeah.
And with the beauty of the guru-disciple relationship is that it is it's so individualistic in that sense. It is the teacher knowing what's right for you.
Yeah.
And that implies that there's a bazillion ways of getting to this like heart of the Dharma. There's a million teachings, a million ways. I thought I was going to be Zen. Zen was my first love. I was like, I'm in. Alan Watts. Oh, this is amazing. You're so cool. I love this guy's style, that way he looks and what he's talking about. Great. and let's go into Zen. Zen is it. And I love Ryokan's poetry so much, and Dogen, cast off body and mind.
Yeah.
I'm like, that actually is such a powerful pith teaching.
Yeah.
To this day, you go, oh yeah, that's such a transcendent phrase.
Yeah.
I thought that was going to be my thing, and it was beautiful to spend time with you at Green Gulch. Which was that place is so special.
It is.
So when you're there, you're just like you would have that feeling when you were in the presence of Tinley Norba Rinpoche. You know this is otherworldly in that it's so precious and not unlike what's happening in the rest of your life, right? Yeah. And so when I stepped into Green Gulch first time, we were on our way to make a record in Bolinas, and I paused. What is this, Green Gulch? It's just a sign. You can see it. So let's drive in. I drove in there, and it's just so unique, so different from anything. Maybe it started my falling in love with Japan kind of thing too.
You had no idea. You just happened to be driving by on the road.
No idea.
Wow.
Yeah, this is a record made almost 20 years ago now. We made it in Bolinas because Richard Brodigan shot himself in Bolinas. And he left the world's, I think, I haven't read too many of them, but the world's greatest suicide note. Which is he shot himself with a shotgun through the mouth. And the note that read, "Messy, isn't it?"
Wow.
That was his suicide note. It was just I must go record in Bolinas for that. Yeah, and so that's also on the way to Bolinas. You see Green Gulch. I'm sorry, we just went on a bit of a tangent.
No, this is great. This is a perfect tangent.
So what else? What's up? What's new with you?
We have this podcast where we talk to interesting people and authors.
Well, I'm happy to be the exception.
Yeah, no, you're far from the exception. But thank you for being the first artist that came on, because I think it's really important for people to not just hear how Dharma has affected people's lives, or how it's not just Dharma, we interview different spiritual people, but how the work of those authors that we publish, how that has changed people's lives, because we all need to hear things from so many different angles for them to speak to us.
Well, thanks for putting those books out. They have changed my life. They mean more than anything else. Those books are perennial things. All those bookmarks, I return to those bookmarks. These aren't books that really start and end. Yeah, they're just open anytime and there's something there. Yeah, I give The Myth of Freedom and Things Fall Apart as the first gift when I meet somebody new that might be interested, or I'm falling in love with someone. Check this out, because soon you're going to hate me. We're going to break up and you're going to hate me. But maybe before that, you'll have this memory and you'll take this and get into it's nothing to do with me. This is before you start to associate that with me. But I guess I apologize to any of the listeners, because they're probably for sure coming to this podcast to hear from teachers and people with some wisdom to impart. But I am somebody on the other end where I'm reading these books, and I love these teachers, and it has made it possible to do the thing I care about and love. Really has. So thank you for that.
Of course.
So thank you to you, and I'm sorry to the rest of you.
Now, since we're on the subject of books, and you mentioned a few, but I'm just curious what your entryway into the path was, if it came through, you said you listened to Alan Watts, like what were some of the early influences that have stuck with you, that like it started to change your mind in the direction of, I need to look more into this?
Yeah, cool question.
They don't need to be my books. They could be any books.
Let's see. Is there like a rival to Shambhala? So I can
yeah, only their books.
Rep them. Well, Robert Thurman for sure. I think the kind of essential guide to Tibetan Buddhism was really, really, really informative. And when you first read that, it's like, I have no clue what's happening here. Obviously, the Bardo, the so-called Tibetan Book of the Day. So that, and that also is completely just psychedelic. Yeah. I mean, it still is to this day, extraordinarily psychedelic. The heart of psychedelia is that book. But reading it without any, so this is, fresh, no idea. And so this is just so. And then also through some artists. So I've always been a fan of Laurie Anderson. Yeah. And then you kind of, as you get more and more into Laurie's work and her persona as an artist, I think I'd maybe heard like Mingyur Rinpoche thrown in there. Like, that's her teacher, Mingyur. So who's that?
Yeah.
So that kind of, let's read that. Let's check out this person who I really admire and feel a connection with. But early days, it would be an interest in Alan Watts. Alan gets me interested in Zen. And then also the Hinduism is really interesting to me, and I feel the most comfortable with that with my name, and having been born with these Hindu practitioners of Kriya Yoga. And actually Paramahansa Yogananda would be a big one, especially living in LA. And Autobiography of a Yogi is an introduction to spirituality for many, many people.
Yeah.
You know, like Steve Jobs that gave it at his funeral. People got a copy of that. And that book is really special to me, especially because here in Los Angeles, that's why there's a portrait of Paramahansa Yogananda in the house, because I think, you know, he was like the guru of Los Angeles to me. And this kind of respect, I'm kind of just offering a little respect to this person that brought this tradition to Los Angeles. And the shrine room is hidden, you know, upstairs. And his teachers here, or his teacher's teachers there right behind you, under a portrait of Dujum Rinpoche, which somebody thought was General Mao at one of the pujas, which I thought is amazing. And so, you know, Neem Karoli Baba also would be a big one, and Ram Dass would be a really big early kind of thing. And Deepa Ma, and Anandamayi Ma, and Ramakrishna, really interesting and beautiful to me. And Ramakrishna being like, he wore dresses. And that was always interesting to me. I've been wearing dresses since I was like 12.
Yeah.
So I heard about this, there's this Hindu saint named Ramakrishna who will wear dresses. And, you know, well, that's interesting. I love that. I can relate to that. Identify with that. And I was thinking about Paramahansa Yogananda last night after our dinner, because I was listening to Funky Kingston by Toots and the Maytals. And that's a song that at one point you just can't listen to anymore. It's so just like, my gosh, so played out. But I was reconnecting with the song that when I first heard was just like the best song. It is one of the best songs ever, right? It's such a good song. And then you get over it and then you return to it. But I was listening to it last night, and in the lyrics, he's saying, like Funky Kingston, people are asking me for Funky Kingston and the reggae, but I don't have that. I ain't got none. You've got to go and find it for yourself. It's really interesting. I feel like I want to look up the lyrics of Funky Kingston because, okay, I just play from north to south, People are playing from east to west now, and I play from north to south, all over America. People keep on asking me for Funky Kingston, but I ain't got none. Someone took it away from me. You got to go on and fetch one, basically for yourself, right? I don't have Funky Kingston to give to you. It's for you to find. That's how I interpreted that. And it reminded me of this Paramahansa Yogananda song that maybe is based on an old prayer from the Vedas that's called Song to the Devotee. And the lyrics of this song are, "O devotee, I can only give you salvation, not my love and devotion. For if I give that away, I give myself away, and I become poor, walking on your heart's wave." That's the entire prayer, the entire song. "O devotee, I can only give you salvation, not my heart and devotion. For if I give that away, I give myself away, and I become poor, walking on your heart's wave." And I never noticed the connection with Funky Kingston and Paramahansa Yogananda's prayer. Crazy. Again, another aside.
Asides are what podcasts are about. They're no fun without the asides.
I guess so. But yeah, those are the early things. Ram Dass would be huge, of course. I mean, I was definitely like obsessed. And I remember going to the Lamas Foundation just to see an original copy of From Bindus to Ohas. And it's so beautiful. That's the precursor to, you know, Be Here Now. Yeah. And I think a lot of people, Be Here Now is the introduction. Yeah. You know, because the art is so beautiful. It's such a turn on that they go, what's this all about? Yeah. Then that leads to Neem Karoli Baba. And maybe Deepa Ma. And then, you know, even Eckhart Tolle would be big. I mean, for sure. And I think he's the doorway for a lot of people. Yeah. And then for me, for sure, I was really attracted. Because actually I went to Omega Institute. I kind of fell in love with Omega because I'd heard that they had a Ram Dass library. Okay. So anything Ram Dass centric was exciting. So I went upstate go to the library, and then it said, oh, Eckhart Tolle's doing a thing with Jack Kornfield and some other people. So I was like, oh, this is amazing. And that was a nice little intro. But this was all the things that I was orbiting around Vajrayana Buddhism. All these little things led to this feeling of, this is what I'm going to marry. Yeah.
They were the breadcrumbs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I still have extraordinary love and feel connection with all of those different, basically versions of Buddhism, and then these spiritual teachings that are really interesting to me still.
Yeah. I mean, truth doesn't have a trademark on it. You know, we can experience it through different avenues.
That's what I meant by certainty is something, certainty is a turnoff.
Yeah.
It makes me want to run. That's what I mean. Because exactly, there's many, many branches to this tree, and somebody tells you this is the only one, this is the only way. Wow, I want to run. And if they tell me that way is not pure love, we'll run. Yeah, this exclusivity thing too is really, I was telling Sarah last night, our friend, our Vajra sister, that I was telling her about this documentary about UFOs, this French UFO cult, and how the leader, who's still around and still has followers, it could be real, you know. Their whole thing was that this UFO appeared to them, and this alien came out and shared some wisdom, and they're the only human that is going to know this wisdom. Yeah. And if you join the cult, you'll be a part of that. And it's just, that's beautiful, and that may be real. And they kind of, at one point, they're interviewing all the devotees, right? All the members. And they, at one point, one of them mentions, and one of the things that he asked me was to go home, take my clothes off, and turn around and bend over and spread my butt cheeks together and just stare at my asshole. And just do that for a little while, and then take my clothes off. And then anyways, yada, yada. And then later I got the book and I was reading. So they kind of gloss over this thing. But I think that is the key thing that made that connection. So I think most of us have not really stared at our assholes. And the intimacy of that, and the newness of that, and the power of staring at this very intimate, very secret part, and thinking of this human, this person, made this, that's how you can kind of create. That's how they became devotees to this cult. I don't think it had anything to do with the wisdom of the aliens. Yeah. That's all. You set asides are good, so I just wanted to share that. So I'm saying, if you really want to get into anything, stare at your asshole and think of that thing, and you will make a kind of biological link.
Is that an absolute truth you're telling me? This is the only way?
This is the only way. All the other ways, they're not the way. This is the only way. So don't listen to people that say this is the only way, unless it's this way that I'm saying.
Because this one is the real one.
Because it turns out that, there's a documentary called Holy Hell. Have you seen that?
No, but you're not the first person that's mentioned it to me.
You have to see it. It's so entertaining.
What's that one about?
It's a cult, basically. It's this cult that's
cult documentaries are really entertaining, actually.
They're the best. Because they cover every base, you know. Yeah. They're hilarious, they're terrifying. Right.
It's kind of like Seinfeld. It talks about all the different aspects of humanity.
Yes.
And it's like the ugly and the beautiful.
And this one really is it's really special, hard to describe.
Yeah. Okay.
And I don't put it past myself. That's the other thing too, is like, I don't think I am at all immune, nor do I want to be, from these things that I at times and most of the world kind of shit on and make fun of. Yeah. Many, many years ago, my friend, a wise friend of mine named Eric Owen said to me, "That which you judge, you will someday walk through." And I have unfortunately found that to be so fucking true. From the most superficial things, like I would never wear those shoes when I own 4 pairs, to these very, very profound things that I'd said I would never be interested in or do or experience. Yeah. And I've judged others for being caught in or stuck in or having gone through or being, or, you know, that I have experienced.
That's really pithy advice, and
I know, I was impressed.
Really poignant.
I still go like, come on, wow, man. Where'd you hear that? Come on. So these things that I, you know, even in Buddhism, of course, there's so much betrayal. So much pain. And it's so extra painful because it is the thing that we must turn to when we are betrayed, when we are heartbroken and we're traumatized. And that, spirituality is what we turn to. So when that's the source of that heartbreak and betrayal, it's where do you go?
Yeah.
It fucks people's lives.
Yeah.
And it totally happens in Buddhism. But I'm not going to pretend like it doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. For me, that just makes me it just opens up more chambers in my heart.
Yeah.
It just makes me have had more experiences. And when that's happened, it's been amazing. Things have happened. Horrible things have happened. People have been so hurt by their teachers. Yeah. And now when I asked my teacher about it, it's just so heartbreaking. And it's heartbreaking for him. And when I've asked, to people in other lineages, there's a wonderful teacher named Shaktiananda Ma has some ashrams in Ecuador and all over South America, and also is maybe one of the only or maybe the only woman who's been inducted in this lineage of swamis in Varanasi. And she's originally from Venezuela, so we have this connection. And I really love her. I think of her as like a mother to me. But when I told her about some things in Buddhism or things that I'd heard other people experiencing, she was just like, I'm so glad my teachers are all dead. I thought that was the funniest answer. This horrible, but of course she was very sad about it. Well, she wasn't making light of it. But these things happen with human teachers.
Yeah, I mean, humans are humans.
Humans are humans.
Through and through.
And I guess I don't know why. I feel like I want to mention that aspect of it too, because I feel like I am so in love with Vajrayana Buddhism, with Buddhism, so in love. And I'm a devotee of my guru. I have a guru. And I prostrate the first moment I see him, when anywhere in the dirtiest street in India. So when I go to visit, that's the thing I'll do. And he only lets me do it because it's embarrassing when everyone else is doing it. And I'm a Westerner, so it's probably good for my ego, because embarrassment is good karma. And so he lets me do it. And I'm going, oh, this is so disgusting, this floor. This floor is covered in blood and shit and piss. But at the same time, I'm kind of turning it into Amrita in some weird way. Something weirdly magical happens when I do something so rational as bow down with my head touching this world's dirtiest floor in front of people that don't know exactly what's happening, because I'm not seeing him for the first time alone. I'm seeing him first time when he leaves his space and I'm not. So we're walking maybe down the street somewhere. And all of that is, I'm doing that because I'm so into it. So maybe, I don't know, I thought that I should mention that I'm also aware that there's humans, and there's a million betrayals and heartbreaks that occur even in this thing that I'm deeply in love with. Yeah. And it's funny because I was thinking about this. I'm reading The Reign of Wisdom, and I'm reading it, and the intro is so beautiful, the foreword, and I'm going, this person's writing is so extraordinary. I really like what they're saying and how they're saying it, and I need to look up this person. And then at the end I get to it and it says it's the Vajra Regent Osil Tenzin, who was the Western kind of person who Trungpa had assigned to take over, and whose Wikipedia page is horrifying. And I've only read that page and only know that scandal. Yeah, I hadn't seen, and so this is kind of coming at it at a different angle. But I thought, this person, it does have some very beautiful things as well. Yeah, it was confusing. Yeah, it's a confusing thing. Yeah, I mean,
there's so much nuance to the human experience.
Yeah.
And we're going to his hometown tomorrow.
That's
right. He's from Ojai, and he really
they kind of
established his place in Ojai. Yeah.
How very interesting. It'll be your first time.
My first time there.
We're having a little puja in Ojai. How funny is that? Yeah. You can't walk down the street without there being puja in Ojai.
I thought it would be a fun way to wrap up our interview. We talked about this a little bit last night, about mentioning this, that one of the last times we saw each other was in Toronto.
Yes.
And so we've talked a little bit about how Dharma has influenced your life as an artist and allowed you to keep going. And we were in Toronto collectively for a Buddhist occasion. There was a series of empowerments and transmissions happening. Dzongsar Khyentse Rinpoche was giving this large gathering, week-long series of transmissions to about 2,000 people. And it's traditional at the end of a Ganachakra, a feast, or a gathering, for there to be song and dance. And I was helping Rinpoche with, not exactly a secretary, but helping in that way. I was in the back room, and so part of some of the discussions about when things were happening, and somebody mentioned that there was a sitar player there who was going to play a song at the end. And then I think I mentioned that there's also another talented musician that was there, and said, what about him? And just, oh, that would be very nice if you could also offer a song. And so I want to hear your experience of that, because you described it as something that you've used as a benchmark for pain.
Well, I'm glad that we're sharing this story, if only to make it clear that I did not volunteer.
Oh, no.
I was not petitioning.
No.
I did not try to. So I really kicking and screaming.
Yeah.
Okay, so my version of that story is that I'm there, these very, 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 very profound empowerments. Very, very experiential experience that I'm having. I'm tripping out, basically. I am anonymous. I'm there in this ocean of people, but we've all traveled, many of us, distances. Some people probably from Tibet, I don't know.
Yeah.
But like have come really far to be with this very precious teacher who is the fucking best. And I am so just grateful and honored to have a retreat from my own world. And it's just going from the hotel to the space. I'm schlubbing it. I'm just wearing my, like, you know, whatever, like little, basically my pajamas. And I got my books, I got my mala, and I'm sitting way back, and I'm letting these empowerments kind of actually start to. I have a moment at one point where I really felt like there was some cellular separation, and I was dissolving. I had a moment of this, like, ego dissolution. You know, I was having my own little ayahuasca experience, just hearing this, because the chanting goes on. It's heavy. It's hours of somebody reciting extraordinarily fast and extraordinarily beautiful, basically Tibetan that I don't understand. And there's words I'm picking up on, but I can't even follow, you know, what's being said, and I'm just letting it wash over me. Of course, there's part of the teaching, a lot of it is in English, and your beautiful, profound things are being shared. It's such an event, such a festive event.
Yeah.
It's so heavy, and Devendra Banhart, the songwriter in person, does not exist here. Great. Not that it's a drag to be me or anything, but this is so wonderful. I could care less, and I'm just farting it out and just getting into this beautiful experience. And I'm eating lunch with some friends, and I'm like, just so, I don't care. Who cares? And just at this moment of fully, really letting go, I get this text from Ivan, sitting here before me, someone I love and admire and respect very, very much. But I have never felt. I've never felt this mad at even the worst enemy of my life at this moment, when he texts me, "Hey, Rinpoche's asked you to sing a song." Are you fucking kidding me? No, thank you. It's so sweet of you. No, thank you. And then no, it's okay. We'll get a guitar. What? Well, I can't really. What kind of guitar? There's just no way in hell this is going to happen. And then it starts to dawn on me that, because this is during the lunch break, and this is like in 20 minutes, I've got to. I'm not getting out of this. He's getting a guitar, and I have to go back to the space, and there's 2,000 people there, and what is this guitar? And I could just go back there, and there's a guitar, and it's a worse guitar. It's with strings that are made of razor blades. The action is so high, you can barely make a chord. And playing one chord, the strings are going to break too. It's just such a piece of shit guitar. And I'm not at all like in any mood or performance ready place. And suddenly I'm just, this guy's playing this beautiful sitar that he's been rehearsing as an offering for Rinpoche. And then that's me, suddenly on stage with a guitar. And the whole time, I'm trying to make daggers at you, I hate you. And then this woman comes up to me and goes, "Hi, Devendra, it's me. It was me." What? It was me. I'm the one that said, you need to play. And I need to apologize to this person because I didn't say anything like, She was confused because I definitely did not go, oh, thank you with all my heart. What an honor. Thank you. I was like, oh, okay. It was you. You're the person that I'm going to like resent forever after this. But so then I'm like, I play this song for Rinpoche, and it was really meaningful. Of course, I was relieved. I've never felt more relieved after a show, and I've never have to play like that. And since then, nothing has been scary. And it was a beautiful connection to Rinpoche. And he said to me, after I played, we're on stage, but he asked me, he's like, Relo. And I'm like, what is he saying? And he was asking for this Mexican song called El Reloj.
Yes.
Which now I'm learning for this never happens again. And then you were like, receive the blessing. And we had to like there was like a little high five we did, a quick little high five. And I felt like the belle of the ball. I have never felt more beautiful and fortunate than having this nightmare situation thrust upon me.
Yeah. I can say, like, I know you don't want to hear this, but I was standing right there next to the stage, and it was such a beautiful experience because you could tell that you wanted nothing less than to be up there. And yet, and despite all the circumstances, and in spite of this guitar that was found in a dumpster and somebody pulled it out, and, you know, these circumstances, the offering came through, and it was like, it was magnetizing, and it really like made a part of that Gana Chakra, of that celebration, and that offering like came to fruition. And so for me, it was a beautiful experience. And I'm sorry that it came at your extreme suffering and pain. But
I'm just glad I could make that joke too. Before I performed, I said, if you're ever constipated, sing a song in front of Rinpoche.
May I make one small request?
Yes, of course.
You have a book of poetry that's coming out soon.
Yes.
And it doesn't need to be that, but you're obviously very moved by poetry, by other people's poetry, and inspired enough to create your own poetry.
Yes.
Is there a poem, have you committed anything to heart that you, even if it's really short, that you found really inspirational?
Well, Mario de Andrade has a poem called Amor, and the poem goes, Humor. So there's that. Now I'm like inspired to commit more poems to memory.
Whatever you're inspired to do.
Okay. Lines from poems, I will say Mary Oliver always takes the cake. Okay. Should I sit back down?
Yeah.
This is because you can see proof that I'm not reading it.
Yeah, it's true.
Which one of a Mary Oliver line is, don't bother me, I'm just being born. It's, every time that line gets me. And then, you know, I can quote Dharma things.
Yeah.
Because Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche wrote some of my favorite poems.
Yeah, like from First Thought, Best Thought?
Yeah, but there's a line that's just something he says, which is, for the sake of heaven and earth, you can afford to make love to yourself.
Oh.
Fuck. Because that's compassion.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had a horrible time in my life. I've hated being alive a lot, and people have been horrible, and I've been horrible to people, but no one has been more horrible to me than me. No one has been more cruel. So you could use compassion. I could use being a little less hard on myself. So a line like that is, for the sake of heaven and earth, you can afford to make love to yourself. That's a good line.
Let's end on that.
Let's end on that.
That's beautiful.
Okay, goodbye.
Yeah.
Okay, we're done. I remember the first time I ever did one of these interviews with the microphone. They had to stop it because my heart was beating so fast.
Oh.
It was picking it up.
Wow.
That I was so nervous. So, and that was years ago. And I remember I thought, I need to like learn how to meditate. One last quick thing I want to say. I was just thinking about this the other day. One of the huge moments of my life that I know, because, you know, as a Buddhist, we were basically born this way. It's our karma, but it took a little while. But one of the moments, big moments, was I was 14, something like that, and I saw the footage on the news about showing these monks practicing Tummo. And that footage is easily, you can find it. It's a group of, you know, like 10 practitioners sitting there with the wet blankets being thrown on them, and you're starting to see the steam appear. That what? Come on. This is like psychedelics. This is like superhuman stuff. This is really wild. And then don't forget about rainbow body. Are you kidding me? Termas? Do you understand? Termas? I mean, it does not get more sci-fi than that. That changed every sci-fi film, every Marvel film. I'm like, oh, those are llamas. All these superhero people, they're just like, this is based on what a llama is. Anyway.